Cool.
But other than that, good to go.
All right, we're live.
Perfect.
We are streaming. I am just pulling up a quick monitor to make sure. Hi, everybody. If you're with us. If you're not with us, then you will be shortly. Maybe. I don't know.
See you soon.
See you now-ish. Maybe if you're watching. Hi. Thursday night. Trying some new things tonight, Blake. I posted a LinkedIn event. So we talked about this on the pre-post show before, but there's some like streaming restrictions when it comes to LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, you have to like build all that street cred and before you can even get in there.
Yeah, so I'm trying to at least make it look like we do this every week, right? So it's like make it real, I guess, in terms of from LinkedIn's perspective. Let's make events around it because we do post. It's weird because they want to see that you're actually doing stuff week to week, and I feel like we're not quite at that point yet where, like, so here's some behind the scenes stuff. What's going on? When you
aren't you already like posting week to week and stuff like that now?
Yeah, we're posting a lot. Now the problem is we're not posting video content. We're posting links to our episodes on our website that contain a video. So it's like they have to go through this extra step of clicking on those links to verify that anyway. So that's why I'm posting the links, is because, hey, look, if there's a Twitch link every week, then they're like, oh yeah, no, they're streaming every Thursday. And anyway, so that's just some behind the scenes funkiness for you.
Interesting. I
think something weird might be going on here.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it looks like our Twitch dropped. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh no more party mode.
Yeah, party mode.
Disabled.
There's a I doubt you watch this show because you don't have children. There's a television program. Bluey. You heard about this?
No, but there's like I'm not gonna say it because it's kind of a spoiler, but not really. There's something that's that exact thing from a recent show that came out, but it's not what I'm assuming Revan watches and you watch.
No. Bluey is a cartoon about anthropomorphic doggos.
Cool. I like it already.
And they've all got Australian accents.
That's even better.
And it's just a really honest look at parenthood, and it's just as enjoyable to watch for adults as it is for children. It's really adorable. So if you're a parent and need a good show to watch, that's my recommendation for you, Bluey. It's streaming on Disney Plus. They are not a sponsor of this. This is just me liking a thing. Speaking of Disney Plus, you check out Loki yet?
That's what. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's the thing I was talking about. That reminded me of it. But yeah, I checked it out. It was a lot of fun. I think I watched it twice yesterday.
I kept trying to get my wife to watch it with me last night, and it just didn't happen. So maybe tonight, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I want to watch it again because it's very good. And we will talk. You know what? Why don't we talk spoilers in the post show? That'll give us something to talk about.
We can do that.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, if you're here with us tonight, we have a show for you to talk about. We're taking a look at this article a little bit later in the show, during the show proper, about monitoring mental well-being from your fingertips. This comes from friend of the show, Farzan Sasan-Gohar. Had an interview with him. That was Elise did that back in 2019 at the Healthcare Symposium. So
yeah,
I re-listened to that interview earlier today and prepped for this, and a lot of the stuff he's talking about really relates to this. So it's fun to like hear him 2 years ago before this article came out. It's like it's kind of foreshadowing what's to come, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's cool that it's very wearable based because I feel like we've talked about something like this before, depending on. Let me grab this on like with a different technology that's kind of similar, but this is just another instantiation of it. So it's fun to see this.
All right, pre-show. So one of the things I normally do during our pre-show here is look up It Came From segments, but we were fortunate enough to have them served to us on a platter this week.
If you're not in our Discord, if you should totally join it, because that was the coolest conversation I think I had seen in a Discord in a long time. Like, we basically got to see insights about like how to fly a jet. It was cool,
dude. Yeah, that image he shared was awesome. I'm assuming.
Do you know what they're doing?
They're a pilot.
No.
So
do you know what they're doing when in that picture?
I don't know. Hang on, I gotta go back and.
Yeah, they're doing mid-air refueling, which is insane. If you look out the window, you're gonna see like a pipe that's going off to another aircraft.
Hang on, I gotta go back and look at that image.
I was like, what is happening in this from this cockpit? But anyway.
So yes, they are. Wow.
Yeah.
I totally didn't even. Yeah, that is awesome, dude. Speaking of mid-air refueling, did you see that new Boeing story from earlier this week? They did it for the first time with an unmanned aerial vehicle. So the unmanned aerial vehicle is refueling the fighter jet. Super cool stuff. Now, I almost included that in one of our top stories, something that we could potentially talk about on the show, but I wasn't sure if that UAV was being autonomous, or if it was human controlled from land, right? It's unmanned. Didn't say anything about autonomous in there. I would imagine that probably be a bigger deal,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I just couldn't find that confirmation that it in fact was a human operator, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that whole workflow. You have a human operator on the ground flying this UAV, trying to refuel this other aircraft mid-flight, and they have to communicate not only with each other, but you're dealing with this lag time, and how does all that work? I want more details to come out about it before we're like ready to talk about it on the show. I thought it was cool. It was one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, this is super neat.
That's really great, man.
Yeah, great plug for the Discord, man. We got what do we got going on over there? Mateo's talking about GeForce Now over there in Western Australia. We got the the marine pilot. I was
going to ask you a little bit about that, because you were asking him things about what was it, like cloud computing in Australia? Did you guys go back and forth? I mean, have they finally gotten their first platform that's cloud computing, or is there something else going on?
Just cloud gaming in general, right? I
think
gaming.
That's what I meant.
I think there's and as far as Mateo knows, it's GeForce Now is the first service that allows for cloud gaming down there. There's a couple services out there, right? You have Microsoft's xCloud. You have Stadia that we've talked about on the show before. You have GeForce Now. You have Amazon's solution of Luna. So there's a couple different solutions out there for gaming, but apparently the GeForce Now and the way this works. And yes, I am trying to kill time in the pre-show because we got them handed to us on a silver platter. We'll mention what those are in a minute. But in terms of cloud gaming, what you have basically is a remote, powerful PC that is, running the game, so to speak, and you are playing it through a browser, through a program, an app, something like that, where your input gets sent over the cloud to this computer that's running the thing for you, and then the signal from that computer gets sent back to you. And there's a lot of technology challenges with how do you reduce the input lag between your input going across the internet to a remote machine, and that remote machine calculating in real time your input and sending that feed back to you to where it's imperceptible, or at least good enough, right, for that's what I'm looking for. Good enough for playability. And so
good experience overall.
Yeah, I think
isn't that such a fun solution to have to try and solve? Like trying to figure out how to even do that from a computing perspective,
from a tech perspective. Yeah, it's really cool. And I was super interested in it for a while. I really dug deep into the Google papers when they released that stuff for Stadia. I think Google has probably got the most advanced solution down. I think Google's problem is their marketing, right? They don't do a great job of advertising Stadia. You don't see Stadia when you see video game trailers, there's a whole swath of them today for that Summer Games event. I think it's like a E3 replacement. Anyway, there's a bunch of them today. You didn't see Stadia at the back end of any of them. And, all these different services work differently. Stadia is almost like a platform, like a console itself that you log into. You own all your games, and you just, you don't have to pay for the service, really. You just pay for the game, and you get to play it remotely. Then there's things like GeForce Now, where as long as you own a game on a platform like Steam or the Epic Game Store on a PC platform, you can log into a computer, and there's a free version that's time capped or something, and you have to wait in a queue for a machine to become available, but it's one solution. And then you have like Xbox's solution, where it's kind of like the Netflix model, where you buy into Game Pass and you get all the games available on that platform streaming to you through the Xbox app. And they've also sort of just announced, a new streaming stick, so you can stick that, as a replacement for your Xbox into your TV, like a Chromecast or something, and play that way. Rad. It's really cool. Cloud gaming is really becoming an exciting sector, I feel, because I don't think people quite realize the potential yet. And the potential is like cloud gaming exclusive games that can do weird stuff that you can't see anywhere else, right? I'm talking like the 1,000 people battle royales. I'm talking like the fully destructible environments where all that processing power has to happen on a computer that you can't have in your physical environment because it'd be too much for you to have.
Nuts.
Right? So,
yeah, you'd be having like a Google server house as one of your parts of your apartment.
So that's the kind of stuff I'm excited for, right? And it's not fully realized. We need to get more people invested into the cloud gaming space across all these platforms. And
it's funny about like Google, because I wonder why they don't market it better, or why they're having a hard time like partnering with these bigger companies.
It's because, there's a couple things going on, right? I mean, Google kind of didn't do a great job with their launch. I think they overpromised, underdelivered with a lot of the functionality, and kind of Google's model is improve things over time, right? And I think a lot of people were expecting this big thing right at launch, and it slowly grew over the course of the year, and like it's pretty great. Like I speak very highly of Stadia on the show.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's great, and I wish more people would check it out, and I wish they would get more traction with some of those better games. And I think it's this endless cycle of, because it didn't have a great launch, developers don't feel like it warrants their game on that platform, or they don't want to spend the time and effort to port their game to that platform.
Yeah.
And then, it's because of that, more people don't get on the platform, and it's that vicious cycle, right? So anyway, there's a ton of different, I wouldn't say a ton. There's a handful of different cloud gaming experiences out there. One I still haven't tried is Luna. I have the controller. In fact, I have the controller right in front of me.
That's Amazon service?
Amazon, yeah. And I still haven't tried them out. And it's because it's almost like Netflix as well, where you jump in and you pay for a certain amount a month. So when I got it, I bought the controller, and the controller was, I think, 50 or 60. And they offer you a free trial with it, and the free trial ran out before I even got my controller. So it's like I couldn't even try it with their controller. It was a mess. And it's not available on the device that I have from them. It's kind of more of a mess than Stadia, but doesn't quite get as much, flack for it. Anyway, so I still haven't tried that, but it's okay from what I hear. Anyway, our questions for tonight. I do want to go over these because I thought these were great questions. We'll answer them in full on the show, so stick around if you're with us right now. But our two questions for tonight are kind of, should I get my PhD? What kind of does it mean for success? How do you measure success, really? And how does it impact your career? Or should you just stick with a master's or stick with a bachelor's even? I'm going to expand it to that because there's different things that you can do with each. And then our second question from the fighter pilot was they're specifically looking for a remote human factors gig and remote human factors program, like master's program. And so what's sort of the pros and cons in terms of hireability, in terms of the education that you receive, in terms of what's reputable, what's accredited, or cool. Versus the brick and mortar side of things. So I think these will be really exciting questions to answer tonight on the show. I don't think we need much else because I think those two will take us home.
Absolutely. I think it's a great way to go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to test my audio real quick. So just give me 1 second.
I think that's a great idea.
Hello.
Because I should test
there we go.
Mine.
Does this make sounds? Cool. Oh, goodness.
Oh, and then you got something for one more thing? I think
I've got some backup down there, I think. Let me
you had one backup. I think the thing I'm highlighting there is from 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago?
It's from last week.
I don't even know where I am anymore.
You're at your residence, I would imagine. You're not at like a Starbucks with the fake background, right?
No, I might be. You never really know. Okay, yeah, I did ethics last week with Google AI.
Oh yeah, you know what I could? I'm creating a backlog of stuff to talk about for one more thing as well because, hang on, moving. That's a thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Sucks. You'll notice people who watch the show every week. You'll notice there's no Christmas lights up anymore. No more holiday lights. And there's boxes all around and tubs of things. So those tubs have been there for a couple weeks, but there's man. If you are hanging out with us and have a comment, question, concern, complaint, send it to stadia.google.com. I don't know. If you have a complaint, I'm sorry. Go to our contact page on our website. If you have a comment, question for us, feel free to leave it in the chat wherever you're watching. I think we're live on several platforms. We've got YouTube up, Twitter, Twitch. I don't know if you're watching this after the fact. I don't know. This pre-show isn't on Instagram, so did you check out our IGTV video?
I saw the original one or the very first one. Have we
check
done
out
more
last week's? Just while we're talking right now, check out last week's because I made some changes to the way I process them, and I think it turned out much better.
Do it. Okay.
Yeah, just check it out right now.
Let's see.
And really, if anyone's watching, go check it out because that would help our numbers and helps the show grow. It helps us take advantage of Instagram's little algorithm there. Helps other people find the content that is relevant to them. In fact, wherever you're at right now, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this later, if you're a Patreon, I guess, if you are watching this on YouTube or Twitch or anything, wherever you're at, hit us a subscribe, a follow, a like, whatever is nearby, a retweet, a comment. Engagement really helps those algorithms pick us up and show it to more people. And I think that really helps the show grow. And obviously, the more people that we can have in our little human factors community, this human factors cast community, I think the better. So if it's completely free to you. If you wouldn't mind just doing that really helps us out. Blake, you're checking it out?
Super cool. Yeah, it came out really nice. I like the new format.
It's pretty cool, right?
It is. It's massively sick.
And it's pretty minimal effort. It takes a long time to process. I think I got that one up at midnight last week. But it's a different format, and it's cool to have that, right? Like we could. I don't think TikToks allow for that long form content.
Yeah.
Last week we actually went over by a couple minutes, and I had to trim it in certain places to get it under that 59 minutes and 59 seconds time gate for IGTV.
Oh, gotcha.
I had to do some creative editing, but I think most of the time it works out okay. Blake, would you mind just talking for a second. I need some water before we go live here.
Do it. Have
about
at
10
it, man.
minutes. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Get after it. All right, so we've got the blurb set up for tonight. I'm looking forward to this one because this is more getting into wearables and some of the privacy concerns that come with it, plus some of the fun benefits that come with actually, being able to track a lot of different stuff through just wearable technology. Plus, there's a little bit more going on too, where there's even like some face recognition, which I know has been a big hot topic for the past year or past like couple of years probably, but I feel like there was a really big push maybe over 2 years ago for like there was like that big deal that they were going to remove the capability to even have like facial technology be allowed to be out and about. So it's going to be an interesting set of stories, and there's a lot of kind of stuff that's rolled in here that's a little bit hard to grasp what's the right answer. But yeah, so should be a good fun show in terms of content up front and all that kind of good stuff. Oh,
I see that you have gone in and you've elaborated on our intel. Good.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Well, really, the second one, I just have like comments. I don't really know.
I think so. I think that is a more opinion based. I feel like we can bring in making. There's probably something we can bring in there. Anyway, we'll have more intel next week too. More than just this standard intel. We get intel on our stories is what we're calling them.
Nice.
And yeah.
Anyway, very cool.
We'll get more intel next week.
Loving it.
If you're just joining us, this is the pre-show. I should have said this at the top. Dang it. Skip forward, I guess, 10 minutes from now for the real show. You're just hanging out with us while we prepare the show notes and get our lips and gullets and throats all lubricated and loosened up to speak words on a podcast. You know what? Hang on. While we're here, I'm just going to write in chat. Hey, if you're watching, please say hello and ask any relevant questions for the story tonight.
Nice. Very good.
There it is. Yeah.
It's always kind of funny to like do these stories and then think about some of the stuff that we'll talk about and then think like, would I actually use this piece of technology even though I think it's cool?
Yeah.
So that's one that weighs on my mind, especially for this story, because there's like a lot of great there's a lot of great impact and potential benefit, but there's also, some scary stuff. Not necessarily scary, but interesting concepts to have to be worried about.
Yeah, I think this story is really cool. I really like aggregation of data. I think I've mentioned on the show before. I don't know. It's a really cool thing.
It can be, yeah. One thing I've gotten a little bit more into recently is like learning a little bit of data science. So the more and more that like I think about algorithms and just basic machine learning, the more interesting stories like this become because there's like an extra technology element of it for me now.
Yeah. How's that? You were taking a class, right? Weren't you taking an ML course?
Yeah, so I'm going through some of Google's just content that they have for free. And I actually want to start trying to go through some of their coursework that they've like published through, Coursera for a bunch of different stuff. For project management training, for data science, and I want to go through their UX one and kind of just see what I think of it, see if there's any kind of, impacts and stuff that I could bring to my other jobs where I do mentoring for that stuff.
Yeah, I like it. All right. I have to, man, I feel like today things have been going in one ear and out the other because I read this story like twice earlier. Like I said, I went back and listened to the interview with Farzan from a healthcare symposium, and I am like drawing a blank on this study. I just need to read the blurb, guys. Don't worry, it'll come back to me. But like, it just feels so weird. It's like it comes in one ear, out the other, despite doing prep for the show all day today. Yeah,
not a big deal.
Oh, geez.
Anyway, yeah. So we've got everything set to go.
Yeah, we do.
You've got your one more thing down.
I got my one more thing. Got the it came from stuff. We're just sitting here talking, Blake. That's what's going on.
Any like cool stuff we can share from behind the scenes with, only people that show up for the pre-show?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to share this. I'm gonna say it on the show anyway, but our lab is now in full swing, and it's really cool to see some of the ideas that are coming out of that think tank. I think our little podcast has become much more than just a little podcast. Like, it's almost becoming a resource for human factors professionals in a lot of ways. And there's, like I said, some cool stuff that we are working on behind the scenes that we're hoping will see the light of day soon, or, within the near future. I mean, some of this stuff, like, I'll be honest with you guys, there's a lot of things that we have in our heads and on paper behind the scenes in terms of content, right? There's a bunch of ideas that we have, and I'm intentionally being vague here because I don't want to give away the cart before the horse. We have these ideas. Some of them take longer to mature than others, and some of them require more resources than we have available to us. Now we have additional folks working behind the scenes with us in our digital media lab. And if you're interested, absolutely reach out to us. We are, there's a couple spots left in our lab. And so if you are interested in working on something for the show, for yourself, for your portfolio, this is a great way to do it. So yeah, I guess the tease is that we have some cool things cooking up behind the scenes. And we've already seen one of these things see the light of day, which is our deep dives, which, if you are unaware, we are posting now a weekly kind of follow-up to the previous week's show. So a follow-up to this show that we're going to do tonight will come out next week. They come out on Wednesdays, and they are just a complete deep dive into the content that we talked about. And it's so cool to see because Blake nor myself write these things. These come out of our lab, and we review them and make comments and edits, but it is somebody else's brainchild. And it's so cool to see, right? Katie's been doing fantastic work authoring these things. And we'll provide our input here or there, but she does the work. She does the research. She basically kind of listens to the show and elaborates on some of the points that we make, and backs it up with some of these other articles on the internet or science that's been conducted, studies, these types of things. It's almost like a weekly journal article, but not quite. So anyway, it's a good time. Go check those out if you haven't already. But yeah, there's some cool stuff coming up from behind the scenes. We have a lab meeting on Monday where we're kind of doing a kickoff meeting with all the new folks. And so, like I said, there's some cool stuff coming. I don't want to give away the cart before the horse, but there's some cool stuff coming.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to go through that too, to get everything started, kind of meet everyone too, because I know you've been way more involved up until this point. So it'll be fun to really just, help people out in a different way than the podcast was ever, I guess, envisioned to be. So this is kind of sweet.
It's so weird. It's more like Human Factors Media, and I'm actually really glad we snagged the .media website, because it really has become more than just a podcast. Now it's digital media as well. It's videos. It's blog posts. It's all this stuff, and potentially more. We'll see. We're always kind of working on stuff behind the scenes, and I'm really excited to see some of them see the light of day. Looks like we got about a minute. Anything that we need to talk about before we go live here, Blake?
I think we're good. You got your audio ready to go?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Well, there we go. We're all good.
All right, great. Well, if you have been hanging out with us in the pre-show, thank you. We appreciate that, especially. because it is an opportunity for us to get everything in line, make sure everything's good to go. And I know it's not always the easiest thing to listen about, but hopefully you enjoyed our conversation about cloud gaming and military pilots and all that stuff. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in about 1 minute with the show. So stick around and we'll get this thing started.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is episode 209. You're listening to Human Factors Cast, and we're recording this live on June 10th, 2021. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I am joined across the internet waves by Mr. Blake Arnsdorff.
What's up, Nick? How's everything going today, man?
Hey, man, things are good. It's a Thursday. I'm excited to sit here and talk human factors with you. Let's get into some programming notes really quick. Just a follow up to last week. Please do check out our deep dive on how workspace culture affects our behavior with respect to sickness, presenteeism. We had a nice conversation last week, Blake and I, about this, but now we have the deep dive with all the science and stuff to back it up. So go check it out on our blog. We'll put a link down below in the description for you. And just as a quick reminder, we have opened up the Digital Media Lab here over at Human Factors Cast. There has been quite a lot of interest. I'm actually really excited about the folks we brought on board. And there's only a few spots left in the lab. So if that is something that you're interested in, please reach out to us. We're kind of all over. We're monitoring all of our channels. So please feel free to reach out anywhere you can find us. Best way is probably our contact form on our website. But we'll get it anywhere, really. Like I said, just a couple spots left. So it's again a great opportunity for anyone looking to get involved in a lab, looking for real world experience, looking to share your work, do some research projects, or even if you're a designer or a coder working on a portfolio, there's some opportunity for you there. Anyway, check that out. But Blake, we know why everyone's here, right?
Absolutely.
You know what they're here for?
What are they here for?
Yes, they are here for Human Factors News. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet. We look through all of our sources. We collect those sources. We have our patrons vote on them, and we bring it to you. This is all the things going on in the community, the field of human factors. This could be anything related to, medical, privacy, security. We got a little bit of everything in there this week. Blake, what is our story for this week?
All right, so up this week, we've got technology to monitor mental well-being might be right at your fingertips. So to help patients manage their mental wellness between appointments, researchers at Texas A&M University have developed a smart device-based electronic platform that can continuously monitor states of hyperarousal, which is one of the key signs of psychiatric distress. They have used this advanced technology that could actually help to read facial cues, analyze voice patterns, and integrate readings from built-in vital sign sensors on smartwatches to determine if a patient is indeed under stress. Furthermore, these researchers have noted that the technology could provide feedback and alert healthcare teams if there's an abrupt deterioration in a patient's mental health state. Mental health can vary quite rapidly, and a lot of changes remain hidden from providers or counselors. So this technology could help provide counselors with continuous access to patient variables and their status, and it's likely to have a potential to be a life-saving implication, being able to understand how somebody's doing, how you can impact them in between sessions, and overall just keep their mental health up. So, Nick, this is pretty incredible. And I know a long time ago we talked about some similar technology here, but there seems like there's a lot more computing power going on in this particular solution.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that story was that we talked about. I feel like it was some sort of algorithm behind the scenes where it looked at your app usage or something, and it kind of consolidated all that stuff. It looked like your battery life in your phone, and how much time you spend on each app, and it kind of consolidated that information. But this seems like it's a little bit different in the sense that it is pulling from other sources. So it's looking at things like your heart rate monitor. It's looking at your Fitbit. It's bringing in all this data, consolidating it, and throwing it through a machine learning algorithm that then brings forward some sort of picture on your mental state. I think this is really cool. So, I mean, like, let's really quick. Let's just kind of describe what this study is, right? You want to describe the study here, Blake? Or actually, let me hear your thoughts on this, and then we talk about the study. How about that?
Absolutely. So this is super exciting to me. I'm a big fan of wearables and like gathering more data about yourself and being able to, use that in a passive manner to potentially help you. Because I think this particular application, like it's mental health based, but I could imagine, leveraging stuff like your Fitbit or your smartwatch, whatever brand you kind of like you use, could still be like, gathering markers throughout the day to use things like call emergency services if you needed to, or even, kind of give you a better estimate of like how you're doing throughout the day. Because I think, Nick, the thing that we had actually looked at was an application that was trying to, give you different like pick-me-ups through your phone, depending on like how your phone usage throughout the day, and its predictive markers about how that might be meaning that you're feeling. And in this case, we're taking, a bunch of different potential variables, including, I guess, facial cues in some cases, and trying to understand how mental health is being impacted, which this has a lot of potential impact for sure, in that like it could help you between visits, if you will, and when things might not be going so great.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. I'm looking back through some of our older episodes to see if I can find it. I am not finding it, but that's a great distinction I think that you make, is that this one is certainly focusing more on that intervention, right? And sort of bringing it full circle to the people who might be able to intervene in your life, like the counselors or therapists that need that type of information and when to reach out to you, that type of thing. So, I mean, let's talk about what data we're gathering here, right? Because I think we want to look at face, or I guess this thing is looking at facial recognition, voice recognition applications, and sensors already built into your smartwatches. So this is using the devices that are already part of your life, presumably, if you use them. And it's basically, it's looking at things like heart rate too. It's bringing in all these variables, and I guess it doesn't, pull in things from the phone is what I'm understanding there. It's just using things that you're already gathering data on, using these devices, and potentially gathering other things too, if possible, right? Like, not all of these devices have facial and voice recognition. They do have, some have like virtual assistants built in, that it could collect data on your voice and like things like tone or things like that. I don't know. But anyway, the idea here is that once these are trained, the algorithms, can monitor and look at readings coming from these sensors and these other applications, basically to determine if help is needed. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So actually, I was going to ask you, is it cool if we go through the use case of kind of like where this comes from and then talk a little bit about the intervention of the technology itself?
Yeah, please do.
All right, so check this out. So this is kind of really the thought process that I think led to the development here, and then we can tease apart some of the cooler parts of the technology as well. So one thing to consider, like as a patient potentially with anxiety disorder, let's say, you could experience a stressful life event that may trigger some, extreme irritability or any kind of other related symptoms that would require immediate medical attention. But let's say that you're between, mental health appointments or going to see a psychiatrist or your psychologist. So in this particular case, if you're not going to like see somebody within the next 24 hours, you may be left to your own devices and not know that the best option is to go to the hospital or go talk to somebody. And without something like this that can like deal with people and help them while they're, in between like seeing doctors or in between doing those subjective assessments while they're in the doctor's office, to like give a little bit of metrics about how they were feeling while they were, pursuing treatment outside of the doctor's office prior, it's really hard to, one, keep track of how people actually feel outside of the sessions they have with a professional. So it's a little bit less data for them. But something like this platform, which is really focusing on, like Nick said, it's taking existing wearable technology, which it sounds like it has the potential just to leverage whatever you're either allowing it to have access to or that you do have access to. So if it's just heart rate variability or if it goes all the way through the gamut of face recognition. But the real thing that it seems like they're kind of measuring here with all of these different potential sensors is just hyperarousal. And so that's really what's giving you the markers like through software into your voice and your heart rate variability that could mean that you might be experiencing some kind of traumatic event outside of a doctor's office. So that's really the big thing here is like it's providing a technology solution with already existing and like kind of widely used tech, and then providing healthcare professionals with the capability to potentially help you when you're maybe not going to see them or like just in a time when you're having kind of a crisis.
Yeah, I do want to touch on a couple things, right? So I think the key here is that's a great use case, and I want to talk about what this might actually look like, right? So if there's correlation between your physiological response and mental well-being is kind of what is being alluded to here, right? There is a correlation between some of these things, and so you can determine that if somebody has an elevated heart rate and maybe they're maybe they're not taking a whole lot of steps, they could either be watching a horror movie or they could be experiencing like anxiety attack or something like that. And the idea behind this algorithm is to train it to know when you're watching a horror movie versus when you're having an anxiety attack, or when you are, like let's say somebody who needs anger management might be having a rage fit. And the application here is that in those states where you are, let's say, mentally compromised, not the right word, but like you need some sort of intervention, I can very much imagine a situation where these wearables are on your wrist. And so it's like, as you're having these episodes, be they manic, depressive, anger, anxiety, any of these sort of ailments, if you want to call them that, right? As you're having these, your watch might be able to go, hey, have you done your mindfulness exercise today? And it's like, that's almost like a subtle reminder that like your device has picked up on the fact that you are in an altered state from normal and you need to do something about it. We can talk about like what those messages look like, because that's a whole other human factors issue. How do you intervene? They're saying here in cases where you are already seeing somebody for mental health, then that might warrant a call from your professional. Say, hey, how you doing? I'm just calling to check in, right?
Absolutely,
The other part of it is, well, if your mental health professional is busy or with another client or something, how do you then intervene by using like push notifications to somebody, right? There's a whole messaging about that that's like, how do you present some information without making the problem worse? And like, is there a whole another machine learning thing around that will then determine what's a more effective message for certain types of people? And once you meet a profile marker, then it can assign those types of push notifications to you. Anyway, I'm talking about the application here, but I think there's a lot of exciting things about this because it's using existing data that's already there, making that correlation to some mental health issues going on, and then kind of bringing it all together and sort of trying to intervene. I love this story, by the way. And one thing really quick, I should mention this research was done by a friend of the show, friend of the podcast, Farzan Sassangohar. And if you haven't already, Elise did a fantastic interview. I actually went and listened to it again earlier today, from Healthcare Symposium in 2019. So it's a really great listen. He talks about some of his research threads. He talks about things like telehealth systems and talks about continuous data monitoring and how it relates to predictive medicine. So very kind of foreshadowing of this article. And it was really fun to kind of listen to that and know what was coming down the line. It's an excellent companion piece to the story. I will put the link down below or I guess in the description of this episode or wherever you're at. So please do go check that out too. Blake, over to you. What do you think about just the application bit?
So like going actually back to the something you brought up about the interview, right? That's the telehealth aspect of it. So the thing about this application is that I think it's getting us closer and closer to creating an entire ecosystem that helps people deal with their own mental health when they can't always be, accessibly meeting with, a psychiatrist or psychologist. In that, like you said, you could potentially, like, if you're getting, precursor markers. So the benefit here of ML is that it can start to learn behaviors over time and understand and interpret data, but it also could start even getting a little bit smarter, right? So in understanding when you're kind of in a precursor stage before like meeting full hyperarousal from trends over time. In this case, maybe that means it starts suggesting like you go for a walk, you do exercise, you do the mindfulness, app you have on your phone. Before you actually reach that state of like, okay, I'm in hyperarousal. But something interesting you brought up is when you start connecting them with healthcare professionals, what's the messaging look like? What's the push notification language that, keeps people in the loop, but also makes them feel empowered that they're like actually trying to do something better for themselves and reach out? Well, one way around this too, in the instance that like maybe your healthcare provider is busy or things are just like they're not going to be able to like see you even that day. Well, telehealth could be another option where you're actually if it's determined like by potentially the algorithm that this is like a really bad event, maybe they just connect you with somebody to kind of guide you through some potential steps or things that you might consider doing. So again, it's like this providing an entire ecosystem for you to deal with mental health through digital solutions, which is why the application part of it is so much fun, because it's just taking your own data and kind of learning a little bit about you.
Yeah, I do want to talk about some potential drawbacks to this, right? There's, let's start with the easiest to talk about. So in terms of what this actually looks like, so this is an application that you install on your phone, and the application then reads all the data, presumably from like Fitbit or what other, Garmin or what other service that you're using, reads all that data and chugs the algorithm on your phone. And so right now the algorithm is done locally on your phone, which means it eats a lot of your battery life. That's something that they bring up in the article. And so because it's using a lot of battery life, they need to figure that out. Eventually it could be done on somewhere externally, like a server. It pulls in all this data, sends it externally. That doesn't take a lot of power, brings it back in with the analysis. And there's the usability issues, of course, that, prohibit patients from using their technology. So like, difficulty navigating in their application, you need to figure that out. And then there's some more obscure drawbacks to this as well. Like, well, how do you communicate what data this is gathering to people? How do you make sure that the people using this application feel safe, like their data is protected? How, I'm going to ask this to you, Blake. Is this an invasion of privacy to you? If like, so walking through this example, right? Somebody willingly, installs this on their phone, this application, like let's say it hits the App Store or whatever. They install it on their phone. They don't read the end user license agreement. They hit I accept. They go down. All their data is getting sent to a database somewhere. The machine learning algorithm chugs on it and comes back and produces some interventions for them. Is this an invasion of privacy?
Well, I think the messaging about the application, how it works, would have to be very clear in how these kind of like how this data and how these notifications and suggestions are being created, which it may not be because it's not like a lot of user agreements are very upfront about what the technology is doing. Although I think it's become more commonplace that like data privacy sharing is more upfront. But in terms of is it a violation of your privacy or not? It's hard to say because it's collecting data that's already being collected from potentially your smartwatch. And so you're agreeing to that. And I would imagine if you wanted to use this service or this application eventually, then it wouldn't provide that much of a barrier to entry because the data's there. Now you're just using it in a different way. So from my perspective, I wouldn't feel like it was a breach of my own privacy, mainly because now this is kind of like twofold, I guess, mainly because I feel like I'm well enough informed by downloading the application and understanding potentially what it's doing that's kind of what I'm signing up for. However, without having read this article and maybe being like suggested that I use this app by my healthcare professional who may or may not explain to me how it works or kind of like the potential repercussions in terms of holding on to my data, that is a bit of a different story. But from your perspective, Nick, I mean, do you feel like this is a breach of privacy in any way?
I don't. I think the privacy breach would be like if a company like Fitbit took your existing data without your knowledge and used it to feed it into this machine learning algorithm, even if you weren't a result of even if you didn't get the intervention, if they used it as kind of like a data set to help standardize the other people who opted into this, I think that would be an invasion of privacy. I don't think this, if you're opting into the application, it compares you against other people who opted in or agreed to share their data at the very least, then I think it's okay. The privacy is a whole nother conversation when it comes to data, and we can't tackle it all in this episode, but man, I don't think this specific application is the weirdness comes when you're using other people's data and they're unaware of what it's being used for. In terms of making people feel safe using this technology, I think messaging is important here. Again, it's like, hey, we're never going to I don't know, we're never going to share your data with anyone that doesn't need it. But then there's also like, there's the safety of your data, but then there's also the safety of your well-being. Like, how do you know that the company that has this data eventually is going to do the right thing? I don't know.
I mean, looking at the ethics of companies is, really, it feels impossible from a consumer perspective for sure. And I think one thing to consider about the trust side is maybe that comes down to how it's being suggested. Like if it's coming from a health professional that, because at some level you got to partner with hospitals to do this.
Yeah.
And so maybe that helps. But also if the design is seamless enough, you're not going to know what the technology is that's running behind it either.
And that's what's scary too, right? Because maybe this is just my cynical mind going, but what I'm thinking of here is like, okay, this thing detects that I'm stressed because I'm going through a move right now. I'm going to throw you the most expensive Amazon ad I can find about moving boxes and put it in your feed somewhere.
Potential.
Wow. Okay, that's some serious like. And I it's totally possible, right? Like, I think that is more of the concern that I would have is the sharing of data with other things. It's like, we're going to share this data with Amazon so they can provide to you advertisements in the moment where you are most vulnerable to buy. Like, that is the scary part to me. I do want to talk about this triangulation of data here and what this actually means in the future, right? Like I think of we're going through the Marvel movies. We're watching Loki. Stick around for the post show if you want to hear spoilers on that. but you have like Jarvis and Iron Man, who's this AI assistant, and he can pick up on things like Tony Stark's physiological response to certain things in the universe, and often Jarvis will make snide comments about them and suggest gently that he doesn't fly at high altitude or something like that, and we've kind of talked about the nefarious applications, but sort of the way that this could be used in a variety of different applications outside of just intervention for these episodes, right? I think there's some interesting applications there. We kind of talked about it with the with the Amazon purchase and the artificial intelligence assistants. Anything else that you can think of in terms of like applications outside of the intervention space?
Yeah. So one thing that it kind of jumps to mind is, and I don't even know how easy this would be to do, because I'm kind of reading through how the triangulation is working, and the mental or the premise here is that it's trying to use a bunch of different data markers to avoid what Nick's kind of alluded to. Like it suggests like maybe you're more stressed than you are based off of just one physiological marker, and you're not necessarily in a full hyper arousal state. But I could imagine that this would be, like in a fitness solution, like really valuable. So understanding kind of where people are in terms of sitting on the spectrum of fatigue and being able to tailor workouts for them, like from your virtual assistant, by providing you with different information based off of how it's picking up your biometrics, how you sound, or even if you're using facial recognition, like how you look in the face. So I think this concept of triangulation can have a lot of benefit in terms of making things more personalized. And especially as we get like more and more in depth and more wearables are going to be on our bodies in different forms and fashions, like this type of triangulation, I think, is going to be kind of key for you to be able to sense what's going on in your environment.
Yeah. One thing I just thought of, interactive media. Can you imagine if like there's a, you're watching a movie at some point and it's an interactive movie, so it plays on pathways and it reacts to based on how your physiological state is at any given time, or an aggregate of everyone in the room's physiological state. Like, let's say you're watching something and it's like one person is super freaked out and another person is totally fine. Well, it might, based on machine learning profiles of those people, give something that calms one person down and riles up another person. And then it could even adapt on that to get both of them riled up and then bring it back down with all these intersecting pathways. That would be super cool. Like almost like customized, tailored content based on your physiological response. That's like way futuristic, but something I just thought of. Any other closing thoughts on this one, Blake?
This is just really cool, man. Like I'm just excited that there's this whole movement that it feels like around like mental health, both like just in general world awareness content that a lot of companies put out, and of course like technology solutions that are trying to be built around it to help people kind of cope in the world that we do live in. So I just think it's a great application, and I'm glad that we're able to talk it through on the podcast.
Yeah, I agree. Great story. And again, go check out that interview with Farzan from Healthcare Symposium 2019. It's a great companion piece to this. So thank you to our patrons this week for selecting our topic. And thank you to our friends over at Texas A&M University for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all of our original articles in our weekly recap blog as we find them, as well as on our Slack and Discord. So go over there for more discussion. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, the Patreon. Huge thank you, as always, to our patrons, and especially our honorary Human Factors cast staff, Michelle, Tripp, patrons like you. Keep the lights running over here. We're having trouble paying our electricity bill, and you are doing it for us. So thank you so much. I do. Human Factors Minute continues to chug along. Over the last month, we've seen some pretty cool stories. Or not stories, they're Human Factors Minutes. We've seen pretty cool topics here, I guess, if you want to talk about that way. We've talked about HFE tag. If you don't know what that is, check it out. Environmental design, augmented cognition, Kanzi method. Some fun stuff over there. Yes. Anyway, if you're interested, you know what, Blake? This is like almost show notes on the podcast, but Apple is paying for these. They're allowing you to do paid podcasts. I think I might throw Human Factors Minute up there. It'll be the same price as the Patreon. On Patreon, cool. You get other things like access to our weekly Q&As. You get to choose the news. But if you want to just buy it on Apple, I guess you could do that too. So we might do it that way. Anyway, enough about Patreon and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and get into this next part of the show.
It came from.
Oh, every week that graphic is just so stupid. All right. Let's switch gears and get to It Came From. Yes, this week, like I mentioned in the pre-show, we got our stuff handed to us on a silver platter tonight. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. So we just mentioned Patreon. We just mentioned our honorary Human Factors cast, Michelle Tripp. Well, Michelle writes in. She says, I have a question. Should I get my PhD? I'll be finishing my master's soon, and I'm trying to decide if I need a PhD. Will it make me more successful in my Human Factors career? I've heard mixed answers from multiple people I've spoken to about this. Some say it's unnecessary, and others say it will make you the ultimate expert in your field. Blake, I'm going to add on. So there's like 3 levels here, right? There's master's, PhD, but I also want to back up and talk briefly about what you can do with a bachelor's in human factors or psychology. So I'm going to pass it over to you. What can you do with each level? How do you measure success? Those types of things. Go.
Yeah, so this is not going to be an easy answer. And I'm afraid I'm going to get unpopular opinions, but there's not a whole lot I can do but be myself and answer the question here. So in terms of like which degree makes sense, I didn't really know about human factors, and I definitely didn't know that you could get an undergraduate degree anywhere near me when I was learning about psychology. So if I had gotten the opportunity to do that, I probably would have. And I don't know what I would have done from there. It all depends on what I had learned, because I've talked about this on the show before. The master's program that I went to, it was invaluable. Like the methods teaching what is everything that I do today. It basically is the foundation for my job. And even though like I do a lot more UX design and front end development now, like it's still like understanding those research insights and translating it. I couldn't have done it without my master's and the program itself. But I think the thing here that I'm getting hung up on that I don't really know how to, I guess, answer it is I'm not sure that it's going to guarantee you that you're going to be more successful no matter what level of degree you have. I think that level of success is going to be much more dependent on you. And I think you may learn more skills from a PhD program. You may get more skills from a master's program, but I think it depends on where you end up in your job, and if you like the industry you're working in, the work that you're doing, and you're seeing impact, and you want to continue to grow and spread the word about the stuff that you do, more so than it's going to be impacted by the degree that you have. Having said that, you're coming to somebody who does not have a PhD. I don't know what it's like to go get my PhD. I have my master's, and that's kind of where I'm at. But I'm glad that you're hearing mixed answers, because that's really what I would want you to be hearing, because I think it's ultimately up to you. And the question becomes like, why do you want to get your PhD, or why don't you? Or do you want to go get some work experience and then see if like maybe getting a PhD is something that you want to do, depending on the industry you want to go into. And that's kind of the last thing I'll say on the topic is think about the industry and look at the landscape of, what you're seeing out there. Because I know personally the places that I'm really interested in are in tech giants. And a lot of people have PhDs, and a lot of, job postings will not require, but they will say it's an added bonus to have a PhD. So that has made me kind of like think, oh, I don't know if I should have gotten my PhD or not, or is that something I should pursue now? But anyway, I of course I'm going to say one more thing. The other kind of last concept here is there's no like time limit for when you can go get your PhD. So if you're interested in like just seeing what it's like to apply what you've learned, you can always go back to school. Or if you're just like super interested in a program, that's really where I would kind of jump in and say, yeah, let me get my PhD because I'm interested in these ideas, these people to work with, that kind of stuff. But Nick, tell us a little bit about your perspective here.
So I am in a similar boat to you, Blake. I also have my master's. That is where my level of education is at. No PhD here. However, I do want to talk just briefly about success. And it's a weird metric. How do you measure success? How do you define success? For me, it's, do I have fun with what I'm doing? Do I make enough money to support, myself and my family financially? And really, do I have a network of people that I can rely on if something falls through? Those are my metrics of success. Am I happy doing what I'm doing? Do I have enough money to support myself financially? Do I have a network of people? And I think I would consider myself successful by those standards. I think everybody has their own levels of success, right? Do you want to attribute success to a certain position in the workforce? Do you want to become a director of, research at a tech company? Do you want to just be a busy UX researcher? I say that, and it's not derogatory at all. It's just, do you want to be like a mid-level UX researcher, or do you want to direct the way something is going? And I think that is also another way to define success. You can also talk about success in terms of money. You can attribute a certain financial value to that and measure success by that metric. And so, in terms of what each of these levels of degrees do for success, I think it largely depends on, it largely depends on what you want to measure success by, right? So let me just briefly talk about, at least generally, this is general, this is a generalization here, and this is by no means like a definitive categorical bucketing of each of these degrees, but this is what I have experienced out in the field for each of these degrees. The types of jobs that you would get with a bachelor's might be like a junior UX role. You can work your way up. It's something where you're not going to be in complete control of the research. It's going to be more of a assistant position to begin with once you get out, right? Now at the master's level, you have a little bit more freedom with that. You might come out into like a mid-tier role where you might have some say in the direction of the way something is going. You might work at like a human factors research firm. You might do, more targeted human factors research that is a little bit more broad. I would say you could probably specialize in some domain like defense or healthcare or something like that. But you're still not the top, right? And PhDs, they are the ones who are directing the research at these places. They are the ones that are bringing in the money for the company. They are the ones that are driving the projects. And I will say, like the master's level, you might get like a project manager level. That might happen after a couple years of work or depending on your experience. I'm just saying these are general buckets. Now, there's no reason why somebody who has their bachelor's couldn't work their way up and be director someday. It's just, if you have your PhD, you're more likely to get that type of position after getting it. It's just, I think of them generally as more or less pathways to that research. I don't know how else to say it. I think it really just depends on how you measure success, and that's kind of where I'm going to land on this, is find out what is your measure of success, determine which of these is most in line with that. For me, I got success by getting my master's and calling it done. And my metrics of success may change someday. I may decide, yes, I want to be the one who directs the research. And if I'm not getting that in other ways, and I might need to go back and get my PhD someday, and that's fine. But that's because my metric of success has changed. That's where I'm at. I don't know. Any other closing thoughts on this one, Blake?
No, I think that kind of wraps it up really good. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to what do you really want to do in the human factors breadth of stuff out in the world, and that I think that will really help you kind of guide whether a PhD makes sense. But I mean, the best thing I think of all the advice here is what Nick has said. Like, write down what success means and kind of see what that kind of pans out as for you.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get into this next one. This next one is from our Discord by He Who Shall Not Be Named, Lord Voldemort himself. Let's see here. So he writes, for anyone who might have any insight, how far behind will a distance program put me from an in-person program? I'm still active duty military, so I can't attend a full-time program now, but I get a stipend to help with the cost if I take classes while still active duty. If I pursue a master's from a distance program versus a traditional in-person program, will it affect my hireability or mess with the actual education I receive, assuming I go to a reputable, accredited program from a brick and mortar school that offers the program? Blake, let's talk about the differences between in-person programs and online courses or online programs. Go.
Yeah, the only way I can really talk about this is giving you a kind of my perspective on what I think is going to be the difference. And I know there are plenty of reputable programs that I've actually now recently heard of that are doing the kind of like distance masters. I know Embry-Riddle is one of them. Super reputable school. In this particular case, might be of a lot of interest to you because I know that this particular Discord member likes aviation. And I want to address the one part in here that I think is probably most important is will it change my hireability if I'm doing it in person versus not? I don't think the degree that you get, I don't think it's going to say in person versus not. It's just going to say you have a master's and you've achieved this level of education. I think what is going to be different and will require probably a lot of proactivity is my guess is the networking side of it that really helps you kind of make a lot of those connections to get that first job or, get into a lab or be a part of different, human factors style organizations like HFES as a student. That will be completely different. Now you're in an interesting situation though, because you're already employed, you're active duty. So maybe that's not as big of a deal. The other thing that I would be a little bit concerned about, and this is only my take on it, is it was invaluable to me to work in the lab that I worked in. Because it led to my first internship. It gave me my first set of leadership experience. It let me apply the methodology. I was learning it as I was learning. It made, countless connections and friends that I wouldn't have without the experience. And on top of that, it also led me to my mentor, who I ended up doing my thesis under. So without that in-person experience, it was all centered around the work I was doing in addition to the learning. I'm not sure how that's going to pan out or how it works. Now, I know there's a lot of reputable schools out there with master's programs online. There has to be some way they're supplementing this, because they still would, I would assume, still would have to make you do some kind of thesis work and work with a professor and maybe potentially contribute to a lab somehow or in some fashion, whether it's like writing or whatever it may be, doing data analysis from afar. So ultimately, I think you're going to get the same education, but the experience is going to be different, and your applied experience of that knowledge is not necessarily going to be the same, or at least that would be my like biggest markers of difference from, in person versus traditional brick and mortar. But Nick, give us some of your thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm largely in the same boat as you, Blake. I think the main difference between the two is going to be the networking aspect. So I actually reached out to him separately and talked to him a little bit about this earlier. So forgive me if any of this is duplicate from what we talked about. But just going through the questions. How far behind will a distance program put me from an in-person program? It kind of depends, like Blake said, on how proactive you would be. But in terms of the actual paper that you get that says you have a degree, not at all. In terms of you being active duty military, now this is a great advantage to you. I think this gives you a lot of experience in a certain sector. So if you were to go into DoD work, you already have that massive knowledge that you can bring in, from the perspective of a previous user of a system. Let's say you worked on flight controls or something like that. You could be used almost like an SME, a subject matter expert, that could then inform the design. You want to be careful with that because systems change over time, and you don't want to bring in sort of antiquated ways of thinking about something years down the line, right? In terms of stipend, that is pretty big for some people. And so I would strongly consider maybe using that if you can. There are also options to transfer credits. So let's say you are taking this online version and, your service ends, and then you might want to switch over to a PhD program like we just talked about with Michelle's question, right? Kind of depends on your path. That stipend is going to be really great, at least to get in and get your feet wet. You might want to try a couple classes while still active duty. In terms of distance versus traditional in-person program, let's break this down, right? You mentioned higher ability or mess with actual education that you receive. So let's talk about higher ability. I think that you will be, it depends on what you do with it, right? Now, if you just do the program, don't get into any internships, don't get any of that real world experience, don't work in a lab, even remotely, then it might not do as much for you. There might be, you might get less opportunities than you might, like Blake said, he got his first internship from working in a lab. I had a very similar experience where my internship would not have happened if I wasn't at an in-person program. And so I think having those connections, working in a lab with the professor of your choice, working on projects that interest you, and then lastly, sort of having your professor be able to make those connections for you. I think that is huge, especially just getting into the field. Having that introduction of like, hey, I know so-and-so, and they might be a good fit for you. Why don't you give them an interview? That's huge. Getting the door open. In terms of the actual education you receive, now there's been a ton of studies on, whether or not remote learning is as effective as in-person learning. And I think with COVID, the way things hit, it's just really different now, the way we all view it. And so there's still some research to be done on that perspective. I will say there's an undeniable effect that you have from being in person. You lock eyes with somebody else in a physical space when they call on you, forces your fight or flight response to go, oh, yes, I need to dig up this answer right now, or else I'm going to be embarrassed. And then if you are embarrassed, then you go and research that so you don't be embarrassed next time. There's a whole social aspect of being in person that happens. In terms of the information that's being presented to you, I know in several cases it's the same a lot of the time. They record the in-person sessions, put it up online, and you watch it later or at your leisure or whatever. But you don't get that interaction. You can't ask questions in the moment and have them elaborate on it. You can ask them questions post hoc, but the context might not be there. You can say things like, hey, in class tonight, you mentioned this, that, the other thing. They're not in that mode anymore. They're in office hours mode. They're doing other stuff, but a question might come in, and so they might answer it, but they might not answer it in the same way that they would have done in that context. Those are the major differences that I can see. And so just in terms of content, you'll be fine, but the interaction bit adds a little bit more to it. If you think you can get beyond that, then that's fine, right? I think you'll be all right with distance learning. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Anything else to add to this one, Blake?
No, I think that was a really great breakdown, Nick, and hopefully this helps with some of the decision making. Either way, you're likely to end up with a very good education, regardless of kind of whether you're doing it in person or from afar.
All right, and now it's time for one more thing. This thing needs no introduction. It's just where Blake and I bring up one more thing. Blake, what's on your one more thing this week?
So this week, I don't think I talk about this on the podcast very much, but I am doing on Monday evenings, like from 4 to 5, I'm doing portfolio and resume reviews to try and help people, tighten up the stuff they're doing so they can go through the job application process. So if that's something you find interesting or you need help either in the human factors realm or the UX realm, or you just want somebody to talk to about career stuff, I'm happy to do that. I do that through adplist.org. So all you have to do is create an account. It's free. You can book 15 to 30 minutes with me, and we can go over your content. So that's something I just wanted to throw out there. I don't know if I've even said that on the show before, but that's kind of my one more thing.
Yeah, and if you want a more personalized professional review, we do have that as a tier available on our Patreon. So 15 to 30 minutes with Blake, or check us out on there, and that helps the show financially. Anyway, my one more thing. Let's see here. What do you want to hear about, Blake? We can go with any of these. I'm going to go with the first one, actually. So a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I had a mouse that really had some trouble with the buttons.
The one you had to blow on to make it go?
Yeah, that's the one. That is now my son's mouse. He has now a defunct keyboard and a defunct mouse, and he carries them around, and he's like a little office. It's cute. It's adorable. Anyway, my new mouse is great, except actually, let me grab a little prop here. So the old mouse, you can see the difference in the buttons. Well, you can't see the new mouse, but the old mouse here, these buttons are very thin profile. They're like right next to the thing. And they're like old pushy buttons. They almost feel like squishy. They're not mechanical, right?
They're old pushy buttons.
I can't bring up my new mouse high enough for you to see on there. Anyway, they're more raised than the other one. They are they protrude a little bit further, and they are more clicky, and it's a very different experience than I've been used to for the last 7 years. So I'm still getting used to it, and I'm still clicking buttons accidentally. So I've now had to go and make different profiles for when I'm just, idling or doing regular stuff. There's a profile that disables all my buttons except for the back buttons, which I don't press very often, that shift it into a different mode. And so if I press 11 on this keypad, it shifts it into a different mode. And I can, cycle through them by pressing that button, or disable it by pressing another button. Thankfully, I had those buttons free, but I have to disable all my buttons because I accidentally press it all the time because I'm still getting used to this new input method. So anyway, that's my one more thing. And you know what? That's going to be it for today, everyone. Let us know what you guys think of the news story this week. You can hang out with us on our Slack or Discord. Great discussion going on over there. Or you can follow our news blog to keep up with any of our articles going out there. You can visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest human factors news. If you like what you hear, there's a couple ways that you can help support the show. You can leave us a 5-star review. That is absolutely free for you. You can subscribe, follow, do all that wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. That really helps the algorithm say, yes, they like it. Show it to other people. Tell your friends about us. That is something that is also free and helps people discover the show. We want to be more than just a podcast, guys. We're trying to become a resource for human factors professionals. If you like what we do and our message, you can always support us financially on Patreon. I mentioned it a couple times. It is what keeps the lights on over here. It's what allows us to do fun things like restream or even just host on our website, or SoundCloud is our way of doing things, and that costs money too. So anyway, all that goes right back into the show. And always, as always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Mr. Blake Arnsdorff, thank you for hanging out with me on a Thursday night. I love chatting with you. Where can our listeners go and chat with you if they want to hear about this adplist.org?
You guys can always find me across social media at Don't Panic UX, but also feel free to reach out to me in the Discord or in our Slack channel at Blake.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me streaming on Twitch Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, not 1 a.m. for office hours, and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thank you all for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends.
It depends.
All right, if you're with us, stick with us for just a moment. We're going to get into the post-show. There it is.
Oh, speaking of that, do you need my audio? Because you were saying Restream grabs it.
Do it for now.
Cool.
There's I'm having some issues importing M4A files into Audacity. I need to look it up, but I'm having some issues. Eventually, we won't have that problem, and it'll be great because it will have started at the same time, and I can not have to worry about syncing them up.
Yep, perfect.
But yeah, for now, just do it, and I'll figure it out by next week. We'll
cool.
See. That was a little bit of a rough show, I think, for me. I didn't quite know what to say all the time.
Yeah, it was kind of a quicker story, and I think the way that some of the words were phrased in it, I assumed that there actually was a study around it, but it was just it was referring to existing self-report metrics and stuff. So it was mainly just about the technology, which it's pretty short to talk about that because it's ML. It's taking in sensor data. But anyway, I thought it was a lot of fun.
Fun. It was fun. And it's our buddy Farzan, so all good. Post-show stuff. What's going on here post-show wise?
Loki spoilers.
That's right. We were going to talk about Loki spoilers. I want to push that off just a little bit in case there's anyone watching with us who still wants to avoid those. There was something else that I wanted to bring up that I was like, what's the show notes? I brought up some show notes on the show that I didn't know if I wanted to bring up. What was that?
Yeah, you were saying like something about I'm going to talk about the show notes or directly in the show notes. I was a little confused when you said it, but I didn't because I really didn't know where you were going. So I can't remember.
What I was saying was it was some behind the scenes thing that I wasn't sure if I wanted to say out loud or if
there we go.
What was it?
I don't know, remember. But that makes sense. I don't know if it was I don't know what behind the scenes thing you didn't say that we haven't said yet.
I don't know. It's like I don't know if we want to do this or something.
Ha.
I don't
You got me,
I'm
man.
Drawing a blank on it. I feel like it was in the "it came from" section. But
maybe
sure.
Was it? Did it have anything to do with the remote versus in person, or did it have something to do with the PhD program? Don't know.
No, I'm almost tempted to go back and
just listen to yourself.
Anyway, yeah, no, it was something about like whether or not we wanted to do something that I was running by you, basically. Anyway, watch two white dudes try to figure out what they said on a podcast. That's what this post show is.
Absolutely. Best ever.
Yeah. Maybe it was Patreon related. Maybe there was some. Anyway.
Oh no, you were talking about like on Apple Podcasts. You were going to sell.
That's
HFM.
it. Yeah. What do you think about that idea?
That's totally cool. It could be another way to expose that it's out there. The only like caveat I had in my head, I was like, just make sure people that do it know that we do have a Patreon, and it would be like another way they could get all of them. But I think there is benefit because I don't know how this Apple thing works. But if you could like just pick the ones you want and you want to see what they're like, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, well, so it's just a paid podcast, right? It'd be like $5 a month or whatever, and they get access to everything.
Got it. I thought they were like buying an episode or something like that.
No, it'd be the same. Like I said, it'd be the same price, right? So like you could do the $5 tier on Patreon, or you could do the $5 on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for remembering, because this is driving me nuts. Yeah, they could do the $5 tier on Apple Podcasts, and it's built right into their podcast player, and they just get it automatically every week. Whereas Patreon requires you to go through their site, get an RSS link, and you got to put it in your player. It's just a way to reduce another barrier of entry, I guess. People have Apple Play credit that they want to spend too, so that's another thing. I think it costs us like $20 a year, but if we're hosting
maybe that's not bad
on SoundCloud for like $15 a month, that's not bad at all.
No, it's not.
Over a couple months. So anyway, yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. We'll try it for a year and see kind of what the success is. If we recoup our costs, I would hope we'd at least recoup our costs.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure about the subscribing to podcast thing, and like how much people are willing to do that versus not. Yeah. No idea. I mean, Patreon's a little different because we have like there's added perks. There's more access to you and I directly versus like paying for, I don't know, the Joe Rogan experience for just subscribing that way. Which I guess in some way I am doing that because I have Spotify, but that's turned into I like their music selection better, and that's not where this conversation needed to go. But anyway, that's where that's kind of like my thoughts there. It could be a cool model for us because I mean it's one more place that content lives. I think that's kind of fun. I think it's useful. People have surprisingly people that I didn't think would find it useful have.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting concept that you came up with. So why not get it out there? Yeah. Let Apple see what they'll do to it.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, we have like, I don't know if you know this. I was just looking at our Human Factors Minute like the other day, and we have so much stuff in the pipeline. Like hang on.
More HFNs than you can shake a stick at.
So we are planned out through, not completely, there's some gaps, but we're like, we're planned out through, what is that? July 11th of 2023. So,
whoa!
So we got like 2 years of content that are planned out from now, almost 2 years.
Wow.
Like I said, there's some gaps, but like a lot of it's there. Or I'd say at least half of it is there for 2023. Probably half of it is there for 2022.
What in the hell?
Yeah, and I mean, like, we're about to do something behind the scenes that's going to turbocharge these. Like, we're going to have shit for years. It's going to be awesome.
Goodness, I'm terrified.
I'm really excited. Well, like, it's so nice to like just do that batch recording at the beginning of the year and like have a year's worth of content for a day's worth of work, and it's like it's so cool because it's just there. And people will enjoy it for years to come. And there's some weird things that have changed, like since we started doing it, right? Like the healthcare symposium. I think the very first episode we have is a little different now, but that's okay. It still gets the point across. And we try to make these evergreen content, right? It's not like, if a technical group for Human Factors and Ergonomics Society changes a little bit, it's still going to have roughly the same mission.
And if it changes drastically, we're getting another HFM up there.
Exactly. We'll tag it new and old. Yeah, we got some cool stuff, dude. Like I think I'd pay $5 for this, which is the pricing model that I used. I was like, how much would I pay for this? Oh, this is really cool. Yeah. Anyway, we're experimenting with that, and if you want to support us, please do. That does really help the show. I can't
keeps it moving.
Dude, so like 2 more, I hate saying this every time, but 2 more patrons, and we're able to basically get some high quality audio transcription going on. Right now, we're just using like the YouTube auto captions, which is fine. It allows things to be searchable that weren't searchable before.
That's cool.
But it doesn't like break down speaker 1, speaker 2. It doesn't have timestamps. That stuff is kind of like next level. That's our next investment opportunity.
I like it.
So yeah, I cool stuff. Anyway, let's see here. I want to talk about some other things before we get into Loki spoilers, because again, I'm giving everybody, because I'm thinking of our patrons who listen to this version. If you're unaware, our patrons actually get the full version of the show. And so I want to be able to just like, okay, we're done talking about this from here out. It's going to be Loki's. Anyway, so I want to be able to do that for them because, on these post shows,
anything goes.
Yeah, exactly. Post shows, anything goes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had actually forgotten that you were cutting these up, or not cutting them up, but like taking the full thing and giving it to the Patreon. So yeah, if we can talk about things that are super useful, that would be good.
Hang on. Let me. And I also hate that we talk about Patreon so much on the, like, I hate that we have to, because it does keep the lights on, and I'm sure they're sick of it because they're like, I'm already a patron.
I'm Patreon already, sirs.
I've already done this. Hang on. I want to talk about my post-production list here because it's changed. Let's see here. So in terms of content generation, these are almost like pre-show now. I do a YouTube thumbnail. I do all the thumbnails pre-show now. So after the show, I do the audio production. I do the show description. I do that mostly pre-show now too. Put it up on SoundCloud. Do an Instagram post with the art and the story. Do the Instagram TV video production, which is like hours worth of time.
That's a whole thing.
It's like, well, it takes me probably like 10 minutes to set it up. And then it probably takes like 2 hours to render because my computer's not the best. On Twitch,
2 hours, that's a fair amount, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, taking, if you think 30 frames a second, and it's actually, wait, so I did it at like 9:30 p.m. and it was ready to publish by midnight, and that was like including all the uploading time. So I'd imagine 2 hours. And it's an hour long show, so there's that too.
Okay. I'll give you that. That still just feels like it's super long.
Yeah, my computer's old. So on Twitch, I highlight the show, turn it into its separate thing, put it into a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a collection, put into collection, which I actually didn't have here. I document any clips that are funny or anything like that. I download the full show to do with the Instagram and TV, all that stuff.
I can't imagine the funny clips like all strung together would be all that funny to everybody else, but it would make me laugh. Stupid moments of HF cast.
And then in terms of the transcript, now I've started using a different service called Watson, IBM Watson. I just run the audio through that, and it works. It's free. But the downside is that it does it in real time. And so I have to wait an hour for the audio transcription. I basically put it in, it runs in a tab, and then I, do the audio transcription. I usually just grab that, while the thing's rendering.
Gotcha.
Let's see, what do I do? Oh yeah. In YouTube, I basically re-upload just the show. Now we started doing that. So the pre-post show is no longer in, it's still a live stream on there, but we realized that the show itself as a separate piece of content is what most people check out. So there's that.
I think so, yeah.
Add it to the playlists, upload the thumbnail, update the description, comment on there with the timestamps of the certain things. YouTube is really cool. They actually do like chapters. So you can, it'll be on the right-hand side. So if you timestamp it, it'll do the chapters. And I didn't realize that for the first couple. So I commented on them with the timestamps. But if you put it in the description itself, it actually chapterizes them for you, which is neat.
It helps me a lot too. Like with our content, not so much, but it's probably helpful for other people who are maybe only interested in segments. Because that across YouTube is amazing.
Yeah, and then for the website, I update the show description because it has a bad ingest from SoundCloud. I attach the YouTube link. I add any guests if applicable, and then I sort of attach captions that I generated from Watson. In terms of Patreon, I download the full show from Twitch, convert it into audio, splice it with the well-produced audio that I do for the podcast. Upload the exclusive episode there with the full audio version. I schedule the patrons choose the news and removing the news story from this week. I schedule the weekly Q&A with some comments on this week's Q&A, and what I'll do like next week is be like, hey, check out the answer from last week's Q&A. Michelle was nice enough to provide us with a question, and I'll put a link to it in there. So that'll be fun. And then I think that's everything I do. There's a lot there. It's a lot. It's a long list.
That's a fair amount of stuff to get done in because you basically do that in one sitting, right?
One evening. Oh yeah, and then I post across all social media. Like I do the LinkedIn. I do that on Fridays though, so it's not like post show, but I put it on LinkedIn and Facebook and Insta and what's the other one? There's another one. YouTube? No.
Instagram? No, you said that. TikTok? You TikToking it?
We're not TikToking yet. Twitter's the other one. Yeah. That's it.
Ah, yes, the one with the words.
The tweeters. Hey, while we were recording, we got this message here from N12K3WTVD01.
There you go. Put all the Patreon money in that.
Yeah, there we go. Ooh, yeah, we're gonna just reallocate some funds here. You want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and viewers on this link. I'm not gonna say it, but big follows.
Follows. I gotta say, they obviously didn't watch the content. I didn't get into human factors to be famous.
Oh yeah, no, they missing out because we clearly want to be
top
famous.
of the pops.
I my wife showed me a shirt that she suggested I wear on the show. It said "I'm famous now" on it. I'm like, no, I don't want to wear that on the show. Okay, I'll stick with the Human Factors Cast merch. I'll do that. This sweater, by the way, is incredibly comfortable.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really happy with Spreadshirt. They've been a great partner, and all their stuff is really comfortable to wear. And I'm not even like trying to plug the stuff right now. It just is like I wear the stuff as regular stuff and not just as merch on Thursdays. It's comfortable.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, it's always good when like companies actually deliver on that stuff, because I know some of them I'm not a big fan of. I'm not naming any names, but I'm glad that. Which one is it that we use? Spreadshirt, not Spring. Yeah, I'm glad that it works out nice.
I think we had T Fury for a while, and
T Fury.
That one was okay, but they felt a little scratchy. I got a T-shirt from them, felt a little scratchy. Anyway.
Yeah, I got to think about that too. So I don't like. I would not be all right with selling merch that they didn't feel good. So it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, like all the stuff I would want to buy myself. Anyway, I think it's time for Loki spoilers. So if you are listening or watching right now, Blake and I are going to spoil the premiere episode of Loki, the Disney Plus series starring Tom Hiddleston. That aired yesterday, I guess, technically Wednesday, June 9th. So let's talk about Loki, Blake. General thoughts. What are you thinking?
So what I was referring to earlier was the Blueies. That's what that show that you were talking about made me think of. Yeah. I'm really excited about it because I can share my opinion. I didn't really like the last series they did.
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, was not a big fan. Kind of got turned off of the whole Marvel thing. And then I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with this, like how this was going to be. Like they're bringing Owen Wilson in, who I do love, but I was like, how is he going to fit into all this shenanigans? But it was a really cool take, and I so appreciate Tom Hiddleston like 1,000-fold in what he's able to bring to that character, and just the way he's able to portray all of those different emotions that as we're watching that scene where they're going through basically Loki's life that he hasn't lived yet and kind of you watch a small transformation and him wanting to be a god. So it kind of blew my mind, and I was really excited because it's just fun. I love Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear about why you didn't like Falcon and Winter Soldier, but we can get into that in a minute. My big thing with Loki is that this series feels like it has more implications for the MCU than either of the other two did, like at a massive scale. Like they completely bitch slapped all of phases 1 through 3. Are we in phase 4 now? Anyway, they bitch slapped all that and basically said those Infinity Stones, yeah, we keep those as paperweights. What the hell, dude? Like,
yeah,
and it's
just hanging around.
It's perfectly setting the stage too for a lot of the stuff down the line, right? So we know a couple things that are coming out, like the Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange and Wanda. And then we also know that the next Spider-Man movie is going to be a Spider-Verse-y movie. I don't want to get into too many spoilers for those because they're not out yet, and it's all based on set photos and rumors and stuff. So I don't want to get too much into that. But we know stuff is coming down the line. And I feel like this is doing a fantastic job of setting up how multiverses and different timelines and different variants of things might come together in those episodes, right? I don't think the sacred timeline that they talked about in this episode is going to be resolved by the end of the series. I think it's going to be gone. I think what we will see maybe is this Loki variant inserted into the sacred timeline after he's died at Thanos' hand. That's my guess.
Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. Because I mean that only makes sense. And I'm wondering if they're going to tie it to the other show that's being developed, the Eternals, because that's what these timekeepers really kind of scream to me as well. So I think they're doing a nice job of bringing all of these like possibilities back to the MCU,
right?
Which should be really fun. And I don't really want it to end like with just one season and like Loki goes back and he's, in his regular life and he's going to die. And I don't think they would do that for, monetary longevity purposes too.
Right. There has to be some greater impact to the MCU. And I think, like I said, it has great potential. And I think one thing with, I don't know if he's confirmed. Is Tom Hiddleston confirmed for Thor: Love and Thunder? Like, because that's another thing that's coming up too, right? He could make an appearance in that. And so, and I think
I don't know.
Make perfect sense. So
it's done filming, and I haven't seen anything because I've been poking around. I haven't seen anything of him being in it. Yeah, but you never really know. They like to sneak those little tricks in there for you.
Yeah. What did you think about the style of the TVA, like the '60s style?
Oh my god! I thought I was gonna die watching the cartoon where it kind of introduces the whole thing.
A lot of exposition.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was fun. And like even the stuff on the wall, like throughout the place, like just those wacky looking cartoon characters that you felt like it's like stuff you might see in kindergarten, but it was a little bit sinister and had to do with time travel and the impacts of it. So yeah, it was fun. I loved the overall aesthetic. Like even when he's sitting down with Owen Wilson during the interview and that like particular like projector that has like some interesting capabilities, but it looks like it's something from the 60s. So I'm wondering
if the 60s time period has anything significant to do with the sacred timeline, like if something significant happened in the 60s, because they took all those time stones, or they took all the Infinity Stones from different points. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the part where Tony actually gets the Power Stone for real is from the 60s with his dad, or was it the 70s or 80s? I'm not sure. It was
I think it's 69.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if that is like the key event that drove the era, because that's as far back as the timeline was altered. I don't know. I'm just a guy making a theory, but that's something that I may have significance.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. Like why it ends up being 69 60s-esque unless these Eternals or whatever they're called, the Timekeepers, just really liked the 60s and thought it was the vibe to keep this place.
A cool era.
I'm pretty convinced, or I don't know, this could be something we could talk about. Do you really think it's Loki that he's chasing?
I don't know. It'd be interesting if it was. I mean, I think Loki at this point is still motivated by power. I think the variant that we're seeing, right, the 2012 Loki, he has now come to terms that he is dealing with forces that are way super powerful, and I think he is trying to use that power. I think this series might develop to where we get that character development that we saw through the films. You know, him and his brother and his mother and his father all kind of reconciling. I think we'll get that character development in this, and I think it is him. I think it is him. And maybe that will be resolved within the first couple episodes. That's my thoughts. And then the character growth will go beyond that. Now I got to know, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Why did you not like that one so much?
It became really obvious to me what the premise was going to be from the first episode. Mm-hmm. And that I wasn't super interested in it. And at first I wasn't really a fan of the dynamic they were drawing between the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's just like, okay, this is going to get played out really, really fast. But then it grew over time, and I did end up because I watched all of it. I've watched it twice. But I just wasn't super excited about it as I was watching it. I was like, this is fun, entertaining, but I'm not like a giant fanboy all of a sudden. And I was much more engrossed in the Loki story.
Yeah.
Maybe it had to do with the characters. I don't really know. And I wasn't always a huge Captain America fan. That was something that Elise was really kind of big into. So I think that might have played into it as well.
Yeah. I liked it. I enjoyed it, watching it. I think the thing that didn't quite work for me was the Flag Smashers. I didn't really like them as a villain in this one. I think they could have probably used a different villain to, I don't know, drive the story along. I did really enjoy the dynamic between the characters. I thought almost the opposite of you. I felt like they needed to take it slow, and they had a lot to unpack between them. And like you, I knew where the show was going, but I think the journey of getting there, dealing with systemic issues of, what it means to be black and wear the stars and stripes, I think that was really well handled. And, right afterwards, they announced another Captain America movie, so that's exciting too. So I liked it. And it sounds like it wasn't as riveting or exciting as the other series, and I get that. So.
Yeah, because I'm a big fan of Doctor Strange, and I was always like a giant Iron Man fan. So I just never was too absorbed in the Captain America world. But I will say that I do totally appreciate the kind of impactful storytelling they did with speaking of what it's like to be African American, and then be what it would be like wearing the stars and stripes, and then also playing on different characters who had completely different experiences that weren't talked about, and then it was all brought up. That was an awesome set of storytelling for sure, and definitely worth a watch, if only for those parts of the story. I was also really disappointed in what's his name, in Vimo.
Oh,
Zemo. There we go.
Really? You were disappointed in that?
Yeah, I wanted more out of him.
I think we'll see more of him.
Yeah, we'll see more of him, but I thought he was going to end up really being the one orchestrating a lot of what was going on.
Oh, okay.
And it did not turn out that way, which is totally cool. But that's what the trailers had me thinking, because of seeing him put the mask on and driving in the Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
But regardless, still fun. I love the fact that we're getting them as TV shows. That's something I do too. Is fun.
Yeah, Disney is knocking it out of the park with the distributed release schedule. They had a point where Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki didn't overlap, and what do? They dropped the Bad Batch, and now that's still ongoing too, and it will go past Loki. So they got like this continuous drip fed content out for Marvel and Star Wars fans, which they know there's a big overlap in demographic there. So they're like, as long as we got something out there, they'll keep subscribed. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. Any other thoughts on either Loki or Falcon Winter Soldier? We can go ahead and call this post show done.
No, that's it. That's kind of it. I just wanted to, it was fun to chat with you about it and get your perspective.
Yeah, man. I mean, I couldn't do a whole podcast on it, but I do like talking about it. So hopefully, I don't know, hopefully someone found this fun or anything like that. And if not, then I guess we won't do it again. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do
it anyway.
Post. Yeah. All right. Well, if you've been hanging out with us, thank you. And if you're listening, thank you for being a patron. And we are going to end the stream right now. So we'll be back next week. Blake, you doing office hours?
Absolutely. I'll be back in the office. Be back on Twitch at 9:30 on Sunday. 9:30 PST.
All right. Thanks everyone for